Okay, hi everybody. Heather Dickinson here. I'm going to be going over my fact sheet, which was about the correlation between sexual assault and addiction struggles. And the article I selected was the link between sexual trauma and addiction, published by New Directions for Women on December 11th, 2020. And part of why I chose this particular article is that I'm a survivor myself, and I'm doing still a lot of work around that in my own life, so that I can be more able to sit with others in the therapy room without my own experience coming in. And so there's a curiosity there as I continue to dive into my own stuff. And I think it might be good for us to start out with some statistics, just so we get a grounding for an understanding for how common this is. So 81% of women struggling with addiction were victims of physical and sexual abuse, and 69% of men were. So that's pretty big numbers there for people who struggle with substance abuse who have previous sexual trauma in their life. About 1 in 5 women in America have been raped, and that's a little under 20%, so about 18.3% of all American women, and about 1.4% of American men have been raped. I feel like what they didn't include in this paper that I think is worth noting is that rape is also very common within the trans community, and I don't think they were accounting for that here. Another statistic is that children with sexual trauma are 4 times more likely to suffer from a substance use disorder, and that in America, a person is sexually assaulted every 68 seconds. So these are some pretty jarring statistics, I would say, and also help to emphasize how common this is, and basically the fact that we will be seeing this in our therapy rooms. So, sexual assault is traumatic. For many, it leads to PTSD. For kids who have been sexually assaulted, who have that as one of their ACEs, it's one of the strongest predictors for future substance abuse. So it just speaks to the impact of sexual assault. One of the things that people struggle with often post-assault are feelings of guilt and shame around what happened, and also what they did or didn't do. And also some might think that they brought this situation onto themselves, which is because of messaging we get through our society, where we tend to victim blame instead of looking at perpetrators. And this can really weigh heavy on the hearts and souls of those who have been abused, and can often prevent them from coming forward, as can the fact that we're often conditioned to, as people raised women, not complain or make waves. And this can be further complicated by the fact that often survivors know the person who sexually assaulted them. So there might be fear around what that might do for the community that they're in. And and then there's just the fact that often it's too painful to talk about. So it's not uncommon for this to be a big secret in people's lives. I know for me it was. I've had a few sexual assaults in my life, and the last one was about 10 years ago, and it took me about 9 years to finally be able to put it into words. And my approach was, if I don't talk about it and I don't think about it and I pretend it's not part of my story, it won't be. However, that's not the case. And often people who are sexually assaulted will withdraw from their close relationships, develop intimacy disorders, turn to substance abuse, start having eating disorders, or begin to engage in high-risk sexual behaviors. There's actually a correlation between what they term as sex addiction, which I don't know, there's debate on whether that's a thing or not, and sexual assault in the past. And then, of course, there's also depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders that can arise. So one thing is that post-sexual assault, as a person removes themselves from their emotions, they can often enter a kind of numb state. And that's part of the reason why folks will seek out things like substances or sex or things to kind of feel alive, because there can be often a sense of dullness or just kind of not really being present in one's life and just moving through it and not really living. Often trauma survivors can also recreate situations that were traumatizing to try to find a different resolution. So sometimes we see that as well. So some of the common emotions that are tied to sexual abuse and addiction are guilt, shame, anger, depression, anxiety, distrust, low self-worth, hopelessness, sleeping problems, disordered eating, and intimacy issues. So what can we do to help people who have these intersections between of sexual abuse and also substance use? Talk therapy, of course, can be great. For me, group therapy was more impactful. I think it was really incredible to be amongst people who had similar lived experiences, who were sharing their stories, so that I felt less alone and felt like some of the things that I was struggling with post-sexual assault that I had just deemed as character flaws or damaged parts of myself, I got to realize were very common responses to what we had lived through. And that was very huge for me. And EMDR, of course, is of course another one that any trauma survivor can benefit from. Somatic therapies. So I'm a massage therapist. For me, on my own healing journey, part of what really helped me was being in massage school and learning how to receive touch again in a way that didn't just completely dysregulate me or have me checking out. And of course, because of substance abuse, 12-step programs are also pretty helpful for folks to build community with others who are navigating similar paths. So what I'll end with is that it is really important to